Hey there role players, Rhaegar here for another video. Today's video is going to be one of my Dresden RPG videos covering the game, and today's topic is going to be the Changeling template in my running series of doing templates. But before we get into the details, just cover a few basics to do with templates, as I may have mentioned before, depending on how many of these videos you have watched. So choose a template. You must put that something referencing that template in your high concept, which is your aspect referencing what it is you are in a nutshell. So it could be Scion of the Winter Court as your high concept, which refers that you have some Fey blood in you and you are connected to the Winter Court. Or it could be, my grandfather was a pixie, informing that you have a bit of wild Fey in you or something like that. And that sort of connects you to, what kind of Fey you are through hereditary. Pretty much all the changelings that I'm aware of in the game are done so through mortal pairing and coupling with a Fey, creating a half and half. Okay, to pick one of these templates, you need to make sure you buy the abilities that are required of that template, which are listed. Luckily for the Changeling, there is 0 that you have to take, but being a Changeling, you will more than likely have to take a couple of Fey powers. So bear that in mind. Make sure you have the refresh available to do so before choosing this template. Right, so what is cool about being a Changeling? Well, in a nutshell, it's because you are a character that's between two worlds, I have said before. There's part of you that is mortal, there is part of you that is Fey, from one of your parents. You are between two worlds, and that is a cool character concept to embody, that you are drawn between the free will of the mortal and the nature compulsion of the Fey. And the character throughout this campaign will have to struggle with this duality. And sort of the key concept in the books is at some point your character is going to have to make the choice. It could come at any time they decide to do this. It's up to them when to choose to be just a plain mortal or to embrace their Fey heritage completely. And that will change the character forever and change the template, in fact. But that is a cool thing to have to deal with in a story, that you've got these two things pulling you from to fro, and you've got to deal with that through compels from the GM, and you've got to think about how you embody each of those parts of you. I think that's brilliant. Now, to play a Fey in terms of the game, you probably want to maybe take a couple of mortal stuns to represent your mortal side, and take a couple of Fey powers to represent your Fey side. Now, the kind of powers you can get will depend on what you decide to go for, what your parentage is, and through talking with the GM, you can sort of work out what sort of things would be available to you. So, say if you were playing a pixie, something like wings would be available to you, or you could say maybe have the ability to shrink your size, or that you are naturally just smaller than most people expect. Or if you could play a troll, you could be huge and maybe vulnerable to magic, which is very useful. However, on that same note, when it comes to magic, you are as vulnerable as any Fey to their traditional weaknesses. So that's something you also have to deal with, which is pretty cool. That you may look like a normal human being, but if you get touched by something that Feys don't like, you're in a lot of trouble. And another cool thing that you have to keep in mind is that the more, and this is something the GM will probably enforce and keep track of, is the more that you use your Fey powers in the sessions, the more Fey you will become over time. You may see you had claws, for example, and you're using it in combat, slashing away, session after session, crap. There will come a point where you can't get rid of those claws. You cannot we go back to your true mortal form, because you use them too much, you've become too Fey, and now you're struggling to revert back. And that's where you got to think about making the choice. Every session, every decision to reflect that. And I find that really cool. I think it's a brilliant template. So what kind of characters do you think you would play as a change? You could play anything. You could play a shopkeeper who just has a bit of Fey in them. It doesn't really affect their business and day-to-day. Or you could play someone like a burglar who has glamours and some unseen magic, which allows them to glamours allows them to mask themselves, make themselves look different, to get in and out of places, to change their appearance. Or you could be a a bouncer of some kind may have trouble in you where you're really tough and hard to hit and you're imposing. There's all kinds of character concepts that can apply to the Changeling template. It's very open, but it's very exciting that you have this sort of key decision that no other template has to deal with. You have to think about it every session. Brilliant. So that's a brief look at the Changeling template. I hope if you're thinking of playing Changeling template, it's helped you sort of decide if it's a template for you. And if you have any questions about the templates, feel free to send me a message or comment on these videos. I'm happy to help if I can. So until then, guys, take care.